All right, Razorback fans, we always know it's crazy this time of year with some Razorback basketball, but as well as some transfer portal nonsense. So let's talk a little bit more about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast, THV 11 Tuesday edition.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I'm also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. It is a very special edition of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast because it is a THV 11 Tuesday. So who better to welcome in than the man that knows all about it down there at THV 11 is the sports director, Tyler Cass. And Tyler, appreciate you joining us as always, man. How you doing?
Oh, good. I feel like it's been a couple weeks. Yeah, I mean, I missed everything last week. I was sick, so don't ask me about anything that happened last week. I'm sure nothing of importance happened in Arkansas athletics.
No, it's been very boring, and that's why we're just going to have to try to figure out whatever it is to talk about. But and unfortunately, the transfer portal has become a thing, and it is a very important thing and a thing that people can't get enough of, but also it's really hard to keep up with. And as it stands right now, Arkansas lost a lot more than they have gained out of the portal. And we'll just start right there with the current state of everything. What do you make of the exits from the Razorback football program? Not just because it's part of college football, which it is, but especially to key contributors and guys that you were really hoping to count on next season for the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it is part of college football, but to this extent is not everywhere in college football. I mean, I think there's a lot of people going, "Oh, pump the brakes, it's happening everywhere." Yeah, it's happening everywhere, not quite at this volume. And I think some of what's happened too with Arkansas is just not just who is going in, but the way it's happened. I mean, by the time this airs, Braylen Russell will probably be back on Arkansas and back in the portal another couple times. Who's to say? I mean, then you've got the whole Patrick Kutas situation with whatever Coach Pittman told us he told him versus whatever else is happening. It's the way that it's the Arkansas, the in-state high school guys entering, and of course, starters galore. It's not just everyone going, okay, well, I'm going to be blocked. Let me go find somewhere where I can play. Like, clearly there is something more afoot here than just business as usual for a college football program in 2024. Half at least of the guys who've entered, I think there's just been something a little extra that has made it feel worse for Arkansas fans. And then watching as half those guys sign over and over with Ole Miss, I think also kind of rubs salt in the wound. So it's normal to have portal issues. It's not normal the way it's happening for Arkansas. I mean, because even last year you can go, oh, they lost KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, and it's like, yeah, I mean that's your starting quarterback, but I think we all saw the writing on the wall. I mean, heck, halfway through that season, it wasn't like a big surprise. Oh, the starting quarterback's in the portal. Like, sure, on paper, that's a huge loss for a program, but it wasn't quite there's not the shock value that I think we're getting here with not just guys entering the portal in big numbers, but who and how they're doing it.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of them going to Ole Miss. I mean, you think about not only just the three players, arguably your three best players that you're hoping to count on next season with Patrick Kutas, Luke Hasz, and Jalen Braxton. But then you throw in a guy like Brad Spence, who's going to Texas, throw in a Josh Braun, who's going to Kentucky. These are guys that are going to other SEC schools, which one would say, well, if they're good enough to play at those other schools, they should be good enough to play at Arkansas. So you can't really say it's because you're going to upgrade it or whatever. A lot of people point towards NIL being the problem. Do you view that that's maybe the biggest issue with this, and especially when it comes to these quality players, is Arkansas either not able or not willing to pony up the type of money that it would what it would take to keep these guys on campus?
Probably a little both. I think all things considered, Sam Pittman gave the press conference he had to give last week. I mean, I don't think there is a way to win a press conference when you've had what happened in the week leading up to it happen. But he kind of said the best possible version of it, which was, hey, we were a 6-6 team. These guys want to get paid like, we were better than that, and we think we can spend the money better elsewhere. And obviously it's, there is a certain amount of wait and see. Okay, go back that up. Yeah, you go and get a guy off the number one team in the country. Great start. If you can pull all of Oregon's roster over here, then I think people will be real happy. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but that's the thing where you have Coach Pittman saying it's more of a willingness issue with the NIL. It's like, I'll believe that when I see it, when I see who you bring in, and then you can start, comparing. Okay, you're willing to spend on this player, but not a Jalen Braxton, not a Braylen Russell, not a Josh Braun. All right, are they better? Sure, and that's where we've gotten used to it. I think in basketball a little, seeing new teams every year. I don't think we're going to necessarily see that with football, especially because with revenue sharing, with the new way that rosters are going to have to be limited in the coming seasons, something's going to change. Who knows what? But this is going to be the closest we get to that, I think, over the last 3 seasons, really, with Arkansas football, of like, it's essentially a new team now. Next year will be the 3rd year in a row of that, and that's where it's like, all right, yeah, no, Sam was right. They went out and spent money on better players, or okay, yeah, something's clearly happening. Like I said, these guys they're not going to small schools. The guys who are going to SEC schools, clearly other coaches and other staffs have made the same kind of analysis that Pittman and his staff had and said, yeah, these guys are worth the money. So if we take Sam Pittman at his word, he just has a different evaluation on these guys than other teams in the SEC. If we read between the lines a little bit too, I think it might not even be the money. It's guys just want a change of scenery, which for one guy, 2 guys, 3 guys, great. Core of the team wants to change the scenery. You really got to start maybe questioning the scene.
Mm. Well, and also too with what Arkansas has going on, people are, I'm saying fans, Razorback fans, are hoping that this team will be improved next season. Well, you went 6-6 this year. We mentioned you've lost almost all the key players that you're hoping to count on next year. So far, it hasn't really built into the roster that you would say that is comparable to this past season. Oh, and also your schedule gets exponentially more difficult next season. So if you're a Razorback fan, where are you trying to find any sort of solace or hope that this year that a lot of people consider to be not good and a fireable offense in some cases to Sam Pittman, how do you convince, or how do you help Razorback fans find any sort of hope that, hey, next year is just going to be as good, if not better?
Well, unfortunately, I think for especially the vocal and more extreme ends of those fans, the hope is, okay, well, this is just going to expose it even further. A 2 or 3 win season, yeah, we're making a coaching change at the University of Arkansas. So I think there will probably be a bit more of a line in the sand situation for Hunter Yurachek next season versus this season. Obviously, this year went in about the most gray area version possible, because 4 or 5 wins, we're probably talking coaching search right now. 7 or 8 wins, people are a little bit happier with keeping Sam Pittman around. 6-6 with the biggest win on campus this century, but also some real rough losses thrown in there. It was the grayest of gray areas. So I think next year there just isn't room for that. There's either going to be marked improvement or the schedule lines up in a terrible way. You're losing games against in-state teams and very regional teams, and we're talking coaching search this time next year.
Well, we'll talk something a little bit more positive on the other side of the break. Razorback basketball, just 2 games left in the non-conference slate. Do they have what it takes to get ready for SEC play? We'll get to that and more. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's daily #1 fantasy sports app across the land. It is big time, and it's something that's really been taken over a lot of the different places around across the world and in all various states. So make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. By winning up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, it's the best way to get in on the action with more than 30 states. And also, it's the best place to join when you have 10 million people. And when it comes to your peers and to the communities, this is what everyone's doing. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. And you can join now this holiday season because Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pickmas, as they like to call it. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. We're also presented by, of course, the College Football Playoff. It's that time of year, and the College Football Playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st. Starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into the first matchup, which is, of course, Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling against the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. So don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and, of course, Max. All right, so continuing our discussion here with our friend of THV 11, of course, it's Sauercast, the sports director. And Tyler, moving over to the basketball side of things, Arkansas had a nice win against Michigan, their best win last week. They beat UCA pretty handedly, which I know UCA struggled this year and was out a few players, but it seems like Arkansas at least is starting to get some things going. You're starting to see some players get healthy, which is important, but they got 2 games left before the real challenge starts and going into the SEC. So where it stands right now, do you think Arkansas is ready to take on the SEC, or are these next 2 games going to be crucial to see just how ready they will be when they take on some of the best teams in the country?
No, I think they're pretty set right now. I mean, you brought it up, New York City against Michigan. I mean, that really, I think, kind of helped this team get over that hump of big time game. You could say Miami, but Miami's really not good. But big time game under a spotlight, went down big, came back, gave up a big lead, and then still fought through for the end. Absorbed a bunch of punches and kept going. There's nothing. I mean, no offense to these last 2 teams. Was it North Carolina A&T, I think? And then, I mean, Oakland, sure, there's a storyline there for Calipari, but the only thing that could happen against either of those teams is an abject disaster. And Arkansas has been pretty good at avoiding those so far this year. We've had a couple iffy moments, but I mean, they pretty much always pull away when they need to in the second half. And even the UCA game, it was nice. It was my first chance to see them in person this year because that was the game at Simmons Bank. Shout out to Central Arkansas. Great crowd packed in there. And, you know, for everyone else in the state's sake, the game's streamed now, and that's all that really matters. But I think, you know, all you had to see in that game was exactly what you saw. They didn't get off to a slow start against an inferior opponent. They actually looked good from the get-go, which is like the one main thing. And then UCA's coach, John Schulman, actually had a bunch of really nice things to say after the game. But the one that really stood out to me was shout out to Coach Cal for, and this is his quote, not mine, so no offense, UCA fans, but getting those guys to play defense against little old UCA. So I think the buy-in is clearly there, which, you know, from afar sometimes seem like an issue for John Calipari teams when they're reloading the roster every single year. The buy-in is there. They've started to mesh. They can get off to a good start in games because you're not going to be able to dig yourself a 20-point hole against most of these SEC teams because, I mean, the conference is beyond great this year and get out of it. So as long as they keep scoring early, keep playing with that same defensive intensity, I mean, I also think they've done enough now. The Michigan game, getting that win, like, you know, a quad 1 win, which we shouldn't care about this time of year, but we still kind of do. You don't have to suddenly run the table and win the SEC to make the tournament. Would it be great? Sure. Really cool to see this team maybe reach a bit more towards their ceiling, but I think there's a little bit of pressure off. Not that the team can ever think that way, of course. You know, you want to attack every game, but I mean, this is a team that as long as they stick around 500 in SEC play, they're safe.
So for that and being kind of stacking up against the rest of the SEC, you don't want to say, oh, just get to the tournament because you want to win as many games as possible. But just knowing what the SEC is, it feels like if Arkansas was, say, a 8-10 team, they could be in the tournament, similar to maybe what Arkansas was a couple of years ago, where they were the 10 seed in the SEC tournament, but it was an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament. It seems like there are plenty of those things as to why Arkansas might be all right, as long as, you know, they're taking care of business, but their schedule doesn't help them. the biggest thing to me is they got to win the games that they're supposed to win, especially your home games. Toughest ones are on the road, but at home, you got to protect that. And you can't slip up against any teams that you're supposed to win, especially when it comes to being at home.
Yeah, because there's no gimmies in the SEC this year. I mean, what the worst ranked team as far as net and all that goes, I think it's probably South Carolina. But even then, I mean, it's not as bad as they have been the last couple years. So, like you said, there's not a night off in the conference, and again, you don't want to. I'm trying to get out of this mindset of like the season only matters if you make the Sweet 16. Like, no, there's ways to have great seasons without a great March run. I mean, that's a cherry on top, and we've the mindset I think of so many of us these days is flipped. I mean, look at again, bring up 2 years ago for Arkansas. That win against Kansas in the round of 32, I think saved how a lot of people viewed what would have been otherwise a very disappointing season. So I'm trying to go into it with the opposite mindset of like, man, really enjoy this SEC season. It's great. And then after that, it's all icing on the cake. But it's going to be a lot of fun basketball. I mean, I grew up a Pac-8, then 10, then 12 guy. Went to school in the ACC. So I've seen and claimed a lot of good basketball over the years, but the SEC has reached that throne now as far as conferences go.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun, no doubt about it. But also, is a lot of fun is, of course, what you got going on at THB 11, Tyler. So, what's kind of the focus now? I know state championships have pretty much wrapped up for the football side of things. On to basketball. So, what's all going on, and what can the next couple of weeks people expect when they tune into THB 11?
Of course, you can watch the Locked On Razorbacks podcast on our THB 11 Plus app every day of the week, Monday through Friday. We got a lot of other great content on there too. Nick Luttrell, our other sports anchor who stops by from time to time, has a full web streaming show called Ludy's Look Back. Ludy is his college nickname, apparently. I'm gonna hopefully in the new year work on something for me just for the app. Where it's gonna be 2025. We're going all digital, all streaming. As far as actually on our air, yeah, we just wrapped up high school football. Big time weekends of state championships. That was a lot of fun. And high school basketball, of course, I mean, we're a month into it already. And the talent in Central Arkansas and really all across the state is great. I've just been working up a new intro for a segment I'm going to call Check Out These Dunks, where I just show you 30 seconds of the best high school basketball dunks every day because it's basketball season. It's great. So, yeah, all kinds of fun stuff coming up.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and you can catch him each and every day at THB 11 down there in Central Arkansas. It's Sports Director Tyler Cash joining us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, THB 11 edition. Tyler, as always, man, appreciate you joining us. Have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.